Welcome to another edition of the TimeFlies podcast. I am, of course, your host, Dario. And if you are watching this, you can see I got my boy Micah in the building. Micah, how you been, my guy?
I've been doing well, man. It's been an awesome NBA playoffs. And yes, Coach Malone, Michael Malone, Jokic, and Murray. So again, hats off to them. They won it the hard way. And that's what you got to do sometimes. The NBA playoffs demand that you scrap and you fight and you play till the end.
Facts. So we're recording this episode literally right after Game 5. Just a little bit of the behind the scenes for the listeners and viewers. The reason why I haven't been able to put out like a basketball podcast, I was telling Micah is that my old laptop crapped out on me, and then I had to get a new one, and computers are expensive, so I had to like move funds around, yada yada yada. But we're here now. So, Micah, while I have you right here, I want to ask you, do you remember what was your when we did the when we did part one and part two of the playoff preview with me, you, shout out my guy Steph and shout out my guy Chris Hall. What was your finals? What was your NBA finals?
So my finals is the same finals that I actually bet kind of a lot of money on since the final whistle of last year's Warriors Celtics series, which was at that time about a plus 6,000 or 60 to 1 future on the Bucks beating the Nuggets in the NBA finals. And then throughout the entirety of this season, I was feeling good because those teams were, for the most part, number one in their respective conferences. And then they were the one seeds at the end of the season.
All right, so you had Denver and Milwaukee. I remember doing the episode. I had Phoenix and Denver in the second round, and my basketball mind had Denver, but my heart had Phoenix because of KD, and I ended up going with my heart, KD, which obviously was wrong. But honestly, man, I kind of forgot what I had in the finals. But you said something a little earlier. You said
I
how
think
like,
you had either Milwaukee or Boston. Do you remember which?
oh, I think I had a rematch actually. The Warriors in Boston. I think I had a rematch. I had Warriors going I had Warriors going game 7 in every single round, and I was right for round one. But after that, obviously they lost to the Lakers. But you said something a little earlier about kind of about how Miami got here, and I definitely want to show some love to Miami because obviously everyone's going to talk about Denver, Jokic, Murray because they won the championship, but I want to highlight Miami a little bit. So first round, they ended up going against Milwaukee, and you said that it was one of the biggest flameouts for a one seed ever. I'm there with you, but we have to keep in mind that Giannis missed most of game 1. He missed game 2. He missed game 3, and he missed game 4. So when your team does not have the best player, this is how the Miami Heat were able to get past that first round. And in my opinion, after they got past the first round, then they had the New York Knicks, and the New York Knicks, they're still trying to figure themselves out as a franchise. Great, they took amazing leaps and bounds this season, especially by getting Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson has proven to be a fucking all-star and a franchise player because this guy could carry teams. But like you're going up against New York, which Julius Randle is the second best player on your team. Julius Randle as one, two, or your third best player on your team is not going to be a good team. Julius Randle, and as soon as the ball's not going through the hoop, it affects everything else on the basketball court. It affects his energy, it affects his defensive energy, it affects his like talking to his teammates as far as like, yo, you need to cover here, you need to cover there. Julius Randle, that's another topic, that's another episode. So after the Knicks, then they went to go play Boston. And then Boston, yeah, it was 7 games, right? I'm having a brain fart.
He beat
Yeah,
Boston
yeah,
in seven, but one
yeah.
of the reasons why it looked like they were kind of gassed in the finals is because once they went up 3-0, they allowed Boston to come back and had to play more games, and Jimmy had to play more minutes on kind of a bum ankle.
But
And
what I'm
then from
saying,
there,
but what I'm saying is that Miami going the third round was Miami against Boston, and then Boston they had a rookie coach. That's one, and then Boston, there was always this question regarding the mentality of this team, and especially after last season in the finals when they lost to the Warriors in 6, everybody expected Boston to be like, okay, now they got a taste of it. They know what it takes. They know the kind of intensity, the energy, the sacrifice. But it's kind of we got like for some reason we got the like complete opposite of that. First round against the Hawks, they let it go to 6 when it should have been a sweep. It should have been a sweep, and Boston kept having these mental lapses. And in game 7, yeah, okay, Jason Tatum rolled his ankle in literally the first play of the game. I understand that. But then Jaylen Brown is supposed to pick up the slack, and he literally didn't. He literally had, I think, like 8 turnovers. And like
Yeah, he
they were
had more turnovers than made field goals in the game. That can't happen.
so this is what I'm saying. Miami's like after they got past round one, Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks, there's like there's a lot of you can say that Miami was the better team against all the teams. Even Boston, in my opinion, yes, Boston had the better talent. Boston had the better best player in the series, but but Boston just wasn't there, man. Like I never looked at Boston and was like, yeah, they're good. I picked them to be in a rematch with the Warriors because I felt like they were the best team in the East, but I still had questions about them. And shout out Steph because Steph called this. He always said that he doesn't feel it with Boston. He feels like there's something missing. And I feel like now that we know it's the mentality. The mentality is missing with that group. Ever since Joe Mazzulla left, that shit really fucked them up. I really didn't expect it to fuck them up this much. But I mean, we'll see where they go from here. But yeah, man, Miami, they had an insane run. They just ran up against a way better team with more talent. They ran up against a all-time center slash player in Jokic, and Jimmy, and then I don't know exactly. Jimmy didn't look like himself past round one.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why, okay, so he had one 30-point game since round one. And in the Bucks series, he was all-time legendary, iconic, one of the greatest series that you'll ever see. But looking
100%.
back on the entire postseason run since then, the guy averaged 23 points a game on way below league average efficiency. So
Right.
he was basically posting a Russell Westbrook 23 every night, and that just can't happen from your best player, even given the amount of different production that they got from guys like Duncan Robinson. Caleb Martin looked like Kawhi Leonard for an entire playoff series.
Yeah.
Had Gabe Vincent was fantastic until the final 3 games of the finals. Max Strus disappeared in the finals, but was fantastic up until then. They had guys step up when they really needed to, but the one thing they were missing was that superstar level every night production from their number one. And given a
Yeah.
team that was already missing Tyler Hero, they just didn't have enough shot creation, especially off the bounce, to be able to have a normal amount of offense. So this is a team that ranked 26th in points per possession in the regular season. They were just the second 8 seed to have ever made the finals. The first 8 seed to have ever made the finals in a non-lockout year. The one lockout year was the 99 Knicks, which were an outlier. Like, don't get it twisted. This team, the narrative that they were just an 8 seed was probably wrong because originally they were a 7 seed who lost in the first play-in game. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year and made it all the way to a game 7. If Jimmy hits that shot, then they're in the NBA Finals. And then this year, the big difference between their regular season to where they were in the postseason was all of those shooters that I just mentioned had essentially career low and bad shooting seasons during the regular season. And then they conjured up more of their personal averages come the playoff time, and then they just shot the lights out. So if they have that level of production from the role players, and then they're also getting the superstar production that Jimmy gives them on some nights versus not other nights, which is why he's arguably a top 10 player versus arguably a top 5 player. That's why they just ultimately came up short. But hats off to the Denver Nuggets. And if you are the Miami Heat, you're
What
probably going to have to retool the roster in this offseason. But what I would say was a loss is a loss, obviously, but don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. And you just made history. You were the first 8 seed to have ever made the finals in a non-lockout year.
Right. So I mean, I'm gonna kind of echo everything you said. So like, yeah, Jimmy, he put on a fucking super heroic effort in round one. And again, I have to harp this because like we haven't talked basketball because of the situation I just told you. But Jimmy was able to do that because if you want to have Giannis as the best player or the second best player in the world, either one of those two, Giannis wasn't in the series for about 80% of it. That's why Jimmy, now again, Jimmy had to do that and he was able to pull it off, so he gets all the credit. But after he got past round one, he really didn't need to go super heroic. He had the support of Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, Kevin Love, Max Strus. He had the support, and he was going against teams where he didn't need to be super heroic. Jason Tatum is not a he's not a top, in my opinion, he's not a top 5 player. And the Knicks don't have a top 10 player. So it's, and Giannis, like I just said, he's one or he's number 2 best player in the world. So Jimmy needed to match that energy. You said that you had Jimmy as a top 10 player.
I tend to not have him as a top 10 player. I actually have him right at number 11. I will name my top 10 right now, and then you tell me the guy that you might take out or put him in over. So
Okay,
the 10 guy,
wait, is the top 10 you give me is like your legit top 10, or you going off, or you're freestyling right now?
oh no, it's my legit top 10. I
Okay.
don't necessarily have the order memorized, but I have the 10 guys memorized.
Okay.
So Jokic, Giannis, Curry, Embiid, Durant, Luca, Tatum, LeBron, Booker, Lillard.
Booker is the one. Booker to me is right outside the top 10, and I think I would replace him with Jimmy, because the thing is with me, I'm a big eye test guy. Like I've said in a million other pods, you're more of the stats guy. I'm more of the eye test. I'm old school. The thing with me is I incorporate when you say who's the best player, I incorporate everything into that question. I incorporate what have you done in your whole career. Give me your personal accolades, but let me see your skills, let me see your talent. But also, I also look at how do you impact the game? Are you literally just a scorer? Are you facilitating? Do you feel the impact that you make with your teammates? Can you see that he makes his teammates way better than other players do? I mean, LeBron James held the crown for that for more than a decade, but now he's a little bit older, so it's not as easy for him to do that. He's still in my top 10, but and that's the reason why I have Jimmy, because Jimmy is proving time and time again that everything I just said, he checks off. He can score. He literally makes his teammates better. He rises to the occasion. He has the mentality of like, yeah, I'm on the same level as LeBron. I'm on the same level as a prime Melo. I'm on the same level as a prime D Wade. And everyone around him is like, dude, you're not. But he's the only one that thinks that. And again, his personal accolades, he's made all stars. Yeah, he's definitely made all NBA teams. I believe they're like third team all NBA, but he's made all
He
NBA teams.
he made second team All NBA, and you know who the normal comparison for him is naturally is Paul Pierce, because Paul
Mm,
Pierce was not an every night superstar, but Paul Pierce also got the Finals MVP late in his career, and who knows if Damian Lillard were to go to Miami in a trade this offseason, then you have the
that's
Butler
crazy.
versus Lillard debate, the same way that you had the Garnett versus Pierce debate, and Pierce was not an every night superstar. Don't get it twisted. But one of the things that he was always able to do was go toe to toe with your other superstar on the other team on the certain nights when his team really needed him to. So he was
100%.
not going to dominate an entire playoff run or be the MVP for an entire regular season or anything like that. But on the given nights when his team needs him to go off for 40, he can, but then he'll also have his average 22 every night.
Yeah, so again, man, like I'm Jimmy Butler for me, he's staying in the top 10, but he's more in like the 6 through 10, somewhere within that slot. And yeah, he did it in the bubble. Nobody expected them to go to the finals, and then he goes 6 games against LeBron, and there's that famous image of Jimmy just like curling over one of the fucking railings because he's
Yeah.
exhausted. So like he had so much on his shoulders that they were outmatched, and he was able to take the Lakers to 6 games. And then the year after that, they get swept in the first round, but that was because the pandemic kind of affected the NBA season, and then they had a quick turnaround. Okay, so that's that. And then the season after that, that's where Jimmy had the game 7 pull-up three, which last season, in my opinion, that wasn't a good shot. But again, he got to game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And then I'll fast forward to literally this season. He gets past Giannis as the second or first best player in the NBA. And then he gets all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. He beats Boston, who everybody picked to win. And then he's going up against Jokic. Like Jimmy, time and time again, man, he's proving that like the regular season, yeah, it matters, but it kind of doesn't. Like he's one of these players where it's like once April hits, it's just like, all right, now it's time for me to get paid, literally to cash in the checks that the NBA is giving me. And man, like if I'm looking to pick players, if you give me a lineup of players of like, all right, who do you want in a playoff game? When you ask me that question, I want to know who's going to rise to the occasion, who's not scared, who's not going to shy away. And you got to put Jimmy in that lineup. You can't forget about Jimmy anymore. You can't automatically go to LeBron. You can't automatically go to KD. For me, I have to like consciously put Jimmy in my mind, because it's a disrespect to completely ignore everything he's doing just because he doesn't have the typical superstar, aura to him. That like I think it's time people stop doing that, and every top 10 list needs to incorporate Jimmy and all these kind of lists. But if you want to say anything else about Miami, about the Miami Heat, the season, the playoff run they had.
I don't think that there's anything else that needs to be said from a looking at this season standpoint. I think the conversation that needs to be had about a week from now, because now is about the Denver Nuggets. And I am not going to be somebody who is going to sit back and try to delegitimize anything that the Denver Nuggets have done, because I know that sports talk shows will come out tomorrow and they're going to pose the question, trying to discredit the Nuggets, saying at the bottom of the screen, were the Heat a worthy finals opponent?
Mhm.
Instead of saying the Denver Nuggets, they played the teams on their schedule and they kicked their asses up and down. So the haters may say tomorrow, and here's a stat that I will throw out, I'm the stats guy. In terms of the sum total of seeds that the Denver Nuggets played throughout this postseason, you had the 8 seed Timberwolves, then they played the 4 seed Suns, then they played the 7 seed Lakers, and then they played the 8 seed Heat. That total of 27 in terms of the seeds that they played is the most ever by a team who won the championship by a considerable amount. But at the same time, none of those teams were really normal seeds.
Right.
Excuse me, except for Minnesota. Minnesota was a team that didn't have enough shot creation and they just relied on Anthony Edwards having to go off every game. And they were kind of a silly team that the Denver Nuggets made look like an 8 seed. Give them credit. The Phoenix Suns were a team that had basically played together for just a little bit, and they still had two absolute fire-breathing dragons essentially going off every game in Booker and Durant. It didn't matter. The Nuggets were still way better. Then
Hmm.
in the conference finals, I think the Nuggets played the team that actually matched up best with them of any of those two teams, and they dusted them. They swept them. They
Swept
pulled out
them.
the brooms and they kicked their ass in front of their home fans. They came back from down, I think, 15 at the half in game four and went on an absolute tear in the
That's
third.
that series was so impressive to me, the way they took care of the Lakers. And don't and again, every game was every game was competitive. Yes, it was a sweep. It was a sweep, but the Lakers were competitive. LeBron, you could tell that LeBron still has it. He still fucking cares. Anthony Davis, as much as he was up and down offensively, defensively, he's almost the same height as Jokic. He's more athletic than Jokic, so he was able to kind of stay in front of him as best as anyone could. And Jokic just shows why his skill level is just on another planet. And I was just so impressed with the Nuggets sweep, man, because every time the Lakers were making a comeback in most of the games when they were down, the Nuggets had an answer. They had a defensive stop. They had a timely play. They had a timely. Coach Mike Malone had a great scheme. Like I was so impressed. But again, real quick, before we leave Miami Heat and we dive really into the Denver Nuggets, I want to compare what Jimmy Butler was doing in the first round compared to the finals.
Hmm.
So in the first round against Milwaukee, he averaged 37 points. He averaged 6 rebounds and he averaged 5 assists. Now, then the championship round, the one that everyone just saw, he went from 37 points in the first round to averaging 21 points, to averaging 4.5 rebounds and 6.5 assists. I mean, 6.5 assists. Sorry. So again, you can say that, because he rolled his ankle pretty bad in game one of round two against the Knicks, and everybody's been saying that he's been like hobbled and he's been playing through it ever since. So I don't know if you want, it's not that it's an excuse, but it's something that you definitely got to look at. But ever since he rolled that ankle, like I didn't see that he was the same. But again, it's like he didn't need to be Superman against the Knicks. And to me, even in Boston, he didn't need to be Superman against Boston because his teammates, they were more mentally strong than Boston. Denver, man. Yeah, man. I don't know what to say, man. There's so many questions I can throw at you right now as far as like Denver, is this the beginning of a dynasty, like the San Antonio Spurs run or the Warriors run, if you will. We could talk about Jokic as the center of all time, Jamal Murray as the point guard or a backup. So instead of like focusing specifically on a generic topic, um, you were kind of telling me just about their postseason run. You were telling me about the first round against Minnesota. Minnesota was the A seed, and they handled Minnesota in 5 games, which was expected. Some people had them in a sweep. But Minnesota was able to get one. And then in the second round, they were going up against the Lakers and swept them. Did you, in the Lakers series, is there anything that you would have tried out that the Lakers didn't
Hmm.
that you can think of right now? Because again, every game was competitive and they were only a few plays away from the series being tied 1-1 or 2-2 or going, yeah, man. So like, is there anything that you remember that you would have tried?
This is tough because I actually think the answer is no. And I give the Lakers a lot of credit because I think they tried a bunch of different things. And at the end of the day, they were missing the one thing that they were also missing when they won the title, but it didn't matter because they were just way better. And I think that this Nuggets team now is astronomically better compared to the team that the Lakers played in the conference finals in the bubble. Whereas this Lakers team is about as good as that team. It's just that team had a healthier version of LeBron James without coming off of his own foot injury, and Anthony Davis still playing at an elite level offensively. Whereas this Lakers team ran into a buzzsaw of the Denver Nuggets because you probably saw game one where the Nuggets just absolutely cooked them in the first half, but then the Lakers made some adjustments
Yeah.
and they showed their game two hand in round one, which I actually think was kind of a mistake because it allowed the Nuggets to have a couple of days to readjust themselves, which their game one adjustment was we have a big bodied, rangy defender that is long enough to kind of harass Jokic while we're going to put Anthony Davis as the roamer who is going to sag off of Aaron Gordon, but take away the back cut pass and make Jokic see bodies the way that they guarded him in the bubble. Only instead of Rui Hachimura, they had Dwight Howard, who was a 3-time defensive player of the year, who's at the tail end, but could still give you 20 minutes a night of playing really rowdy defense. And that's the only thing that he has to do on the floor in terms of his own responsibilities. So at a certain point, one of the things that I think is the greatest defenses for the Denver Nuggets is actually their offense. The Denver Nuggets offense was the best by an NBA champion since the 1987 Lakers with Magic and Kareem. And the reason why it's so good is because they wear you down on that end so much that you actually lose some of your legs on your own offensive end, which is where the Lakers struggled because the Lakers didn't shoot it well from three in the bubble, but it didn't matter because they were just so good from LeBron James and Anthony Davis and defensively. Whereas this Nuggets team tested them so much on their own offensive end that it allowed the Lakers offense just to go cold at brutal times because they didn't have enough spot up shooting. Austin Reeves was fantastic and had the series that is going to get him a kind of a major payday this offseason, whether it's with the Lakers or if he wants to be the starting point guard on an upstart team. Like, what if it's Reeves and Wemby in San Antonio, for example? Like, that's a name that has been floated out as a potential starting point guard somewhere.
If you're Rob Pelinka, would you give Austin Reeves the money?
The Lakers have said that they will match any offer up to 25 million, I believe. And I would be shocked if a team gave Austin Reeves $25 million.
I can see it.
But because Jalen Brunson is basically playing at a $30 million level, and I think that Austin Reeves is not in the same ballpark. Jalen Brunson is basically as good as Jamal Murray at this point. So they're completely different levels of player. But Austin Reeves should feel like he is going to get starting level bag money and be the secondary ball handler like he was to LeBron James on a good team next year. And I honestly think that Rob Pelinka will give him the money, even though I would caution against it if it's actually a number that's that high.
I think they should have ran the offense a little bit more through Austin Reeves. They kind of just like went back to what is, I guess, normal. Like, okay, it's LeBron, so we have to run the offense through him. But like, if you watch the series, Austin Reeves, like, he had fucking key moments where he was, again, orchestrating the offense and he was able to break the defense down because he's a way better ball handler. He's a way better aggressive attacker than people give him credit for. And yeah, that's one thing. As you were talking, it reminded me that like I would have ran the offense through Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves should have been doing a lot more pick and rolls with AD. To answer my own question, if I was Rob Pelinka, yeah, I don't know, man. That's really tricky because Austin Reeves, like, yeah, you see his potential, but I don't know. Like, do you see another? do you see like another level that he can get to? And it's
That's the
very,
major question because
yeah,
he's
it's
never
very
going to be
tricky.
he's never going to be your primary ball handler on a really good team. But is some bottom feeder going to offer him the bag so much that he can't say no to it? Like I mentioned, San Antonio,
Yeah.
if Wemby is really as good as people say he is, they might be contending within 3 years from now if they can pair Wemby with a star guard to run pick and roll with. And if they really think that Austin Reeves could become like the best white guard in the entire league by a mile, then sure, go for it. Be my guest. But I would say the next level for him is Tyler Hero offensively. And no offense to Tyler Hero. If Tyler Hero is your lead guard today and you don't have an elite wing or an elite big that are at least as good as Jimmy Butler, if not better, then you're really not going to be able to contend for titles in today's league because today's league is built on pull-up shooting as well as brilliant playmaking, especially off the bounce. And if a guy is going to be below average as your lead scorer in terms of efficiency, you're going to find yourself having real troubles the same way the Heat did. I mean, the Heat were bad offensively in the regular season, and then they ran into the Nuggets who could actually be bigger and use their size to their advantage in terms of influencing shots, getting their hands in passing lanes, and making life hell for a team that is super 3-point reliant, especially when Jimmy is not playoff Jimmy or Himmy buckets, whatever you want to call him.
Again, the Wembanyama thing, as I was trying to move my funds around and trying to get a new computer, there was that fucking report. I think Chris Haynes or Chris Broussard said that Wembanyama is the best prospect like ever. Like he's totally ignoring Kareem, LeBron, which is fucking ridiculous. And he also said that if Wembanyama is not Kevin Durant by what season 3, it's a failure. Like, yo, the shit that people say to get fucking clout these days is insane. But before I forget, I also want to say, Eric Spoelstra not playing Tyler Hero, I think was the correct call. You can't just throw Tyler Hero back in the fucking game in game 5. Like I think it was the right call. But before I forget, I also want to make a correction. I made a mistake. I said that Phoenix would play Lakers in the second round. It was the conference championship. They actually played Phoenix in the second round. And the way that Phoenix was able to get 2 games against this 2023 NBA champion Denver Nuggets, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant had to go fucking nuclear. Devin Booker and those 2 wins, he was like 80% from the field, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad that you brought that up. That's what it takes to beat this Denver Nuggets team. Not only
Exactly.
are they historic offense, but if you had taken their playoff defensive rating and put it in the regular season, they were the number one defense in the entire league. And one of the reasons why Phoenix was the team that had the most success overall, but especially offensively against this Denver Nuggets team, is because they are the team in the entire league that is the best at manufacturing and making mid-range jump shots because the Nuggets, because they're not a great team in terms of defensive personnel, they focus on their principles in order to raise their defensive ceiling, which is we are going to take away the rim and we're going to take away the 3-point line and we're going to force teams to take tough mid-range pull-up twos. And the Phoenix Suns realized at one point we have to make everything from the mid range in order to beat these guys because they're just so good offensively and they're going to kill us on that end. But to their credit, they had 2 fire-breathing dragons that couldn't miss for 2 games. And that's what it took to beat these guys twice.
And
In
also
the
Chris Paul got
in
hurt.
the 2 other losses that the Denver Nuggets suffered, one of them was in overtime to Minnesota, and Denver closed the fourth quarter of that game on a 12-0 run and had a shot to win it and missed it, and then it went to overtime. So that was one of their losses after a 12-0 run, being down 12 with 2.5 minutes to go. And then their one loss against the Miami Heat, the Miami Heat set an NBA Finals record. 189 offensive rating in a fourth quarter. That's the best in any fourth quarter in NBA Finals history.
Yeah.
That's what it took to beat those guys once. I just named 4 crazy outliers.
Facts. What I want to ask him now is just your initial reaction to the future of the Denver Nuggets. Do you see, I personally, I see them as having a San Antonio Spurs run where they win one, they lose one, they win one, they lose one. The Spurs never had a back to back, and I mean, me and you could be both wrong. Obviously, we're not fucking genies. We don't know. We can't foretell the future. But I'm looking at Denver Nuggets, and you have Jokic as your foundational superstar player. Jokic is not athletic. He can't jump out the gym. And look at what he just did in this playoff run. He's only 28. He's going to, and he's in the middle of his prime, and he's only going to get better. And Jamal Murray as his second go-to guy, barring injury, because he already had a nasty ACL tear. Hopefully, no more injuries for Jamal Murray. But those two players as your pillars in the team and your organization, man, yo, the future for the Nuggets, like, I'm not gonna say they're gonna win every championship. They're not gonna go on a 3P like the Lakers. I don't think that's gonna happen. But I see them contending, man, like for like the next foreseeable future, bro. Like, is there anything that I'm saying that's kind of crazy?
Two things here. I want to talk about the Denver Nuggets, and then I want to talk about Jokic's ranking all time amongst centers and some other players that are a similar mold to him. Let's
Okay.
start with the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, yeah.
They are going to be a team that is in the conversation for the NBA Finals every single year for the foreseeable future, barring injury. And I'm going to go ahead and knock on wood. Because from a contract standpoint and from an age standpoint, with all their best players, they are in the perfect scenario to have a long runway for competing for titles. They're starting five: Jokic, Murray, KCP, Gordon, and Porter. All of them are under contract for the next 2 years to be with the same team. And their offense this season was, offense and defense included, the best starting five of any team in the entire league. That unit will return, and all of those guys will have had another year under their belt playing together. I expect Porter to get better from not only being a great spot up shooter, but as he showed in game 5 tonight, it was not his series. It was rough. He couldn't make anything from his normally absolutely pure spot up jump shot to being able to create off the dribble, make plays for his teammates, back cut, move without the basketball, crash the offensive glass. And the Denver Nuggets are going to pose huge physical problems for almost every team they play because they are big and they play big. They are going to make you feel them every single time. They're going to put every team in uncomfortable positions. All of their guys seem to love playing with each other. And the only guy that's one of their normal rotation players that likely will not be back next year is Bruce Brown. And I would assume that because everything that went right for them this offseason, or this past season, guys are going to want to come to Denver, just being just how great Jokic is and seeing how easy it is to play with him and how fun it is to play with him. Veterans that are chasing championships and still have a decent amount of time left in their prime as well as their normal NBA career are going to want to come play with this team because they share the basketball. And to your point, they look an awful lot like the Spurs because they just play the beautiful game. There is no iron team with this team, and all they're about is winning. They're going to mash through the regular season, and even this season, it was all about the postseason. They
Bruce,
wrecked the Western Conference through the All-Star break, and then they took their foot off the gas pedal to focus on what their real goal was, which was winning an NBA title, not
yeah.
Jokic winning an MVP. I made this joke midway through the playoffs when it started to look like this Denver Nuggets team is the NBA Finals favorites. Joel Embiid won the MVP, and Nikola Jokic is going to win the Finals MVP. Both players won the trophy that they actually cared about, so everybody
Mm.
wins. And
Bruce Brown
the
not
Denver
coming back
Nuggets,
is gonna be big. If he
it's
doesn't
what?
come back, Bruce Brown, if he doesn't come back, that's a big piece.
So he has a player option, and if he comes back, he'll be getting 6 million, which would be a real discount. He's going to be worthy of probably a $15 million contract to be a starting player on any other team, but he's not a starter with the Nuggets because their starting five is just rock solid, and he's not going to take KCP's role. KCP was fantastic as a role player. He's almost your prototypical role player, which is
He has
he
two
moves
two
well
rings
without the
now.
basketball. He makes the catch and shoot three. Defensively, he's going to have some deflections. He's going to create fast break opportunities. And he's a decent pull up shooter if and when he needs to handle the ball a little bit.
So I just asked you a couple minutes ago. I was like, specifically with the Lakers series, is there anything that you would have done different? You know what I would have done if I was the Minnesota Timberwolves, if I was the Phoenix Suns, the Lakers, and the Miami Heat? Put Jokic on his ass. Get physical with him. I did not see one team get really physical with him. And I get it. The flopping, the refs are going to call it. It's a softer game. I get all that. But if Jokic is busting your ass like he did in every fucking series, put him on his ass, bro. Let him know that like you're here and you respect him as a player, but like shit is not gonna be sweet. It's not gonna be easy for you. And I just feel like people were giving him a little bit too much respect. Same thing with Jamal Murray. Put them on their ass, bro. Get physical with
Hold
them.
on. Are you trying to make the argument that teams were not physical enough with Jokic? Jokic was the best best paint defender in the entire playoffs in terms of defensive field goal percentage. Teams went at him repeatedly. All I've had to hear these last few years is guys are going to put him in 100 pick and rolls and there's nothing he can do about it. He sucks at defense.
No, so what
He was one of the best defensive players in the entire playoffs. I don't even know how you're trying to make this argument anymore. There's
no. I'm
only
not
one
saying
thing
he's
you can
soft.
take away from this, which is he's the best player in the world.
I'm
He
not saying
became
he's
the
soft.
first player in NBA history to have led the playoffs outright in points, rebounds, and assists, and his defensive field goal percentage and defensive impact were all fully on display. He dominated and had one of the greatest individual postseason runs ever. And that's not even to take away the fact that Jamal Murray was
I'm not
also
saying he's soft.
fabulous himself.
I'm not saying he's soft, but what I'm saying is I would have, if I was a player on any of those teams that went up against Denver, I would have like, if he's driving to the lane, I'm literally clotheslining him. That's
Oh,
what I'm
you're saying
saying.
when he's on offense. I thought you were talking about when the Nuggets are on defense.
No. Yeah, I'm talking about if I was a player guarding Jokic, I'm fucking clotheslining him. I want to, like, he's not soft. He's not soft. He's proven that time and time again. And whoever says that because he's European doesn't know basketball. But have we seen anybody like clothesline him like Raja Bell did against Kobe Bryant in the Phoenix in the playoffs?
You're saying you would have a guy come off of your bench and commit a flagrant two just to injure him?
No, not to injure him. Like
Because
do it tastefully. What have
the
we seen?
Heat were as physical as you could possibly be.
Not
They were
enough.
undersized.
Not
The
enough.
Lakers were as physical as they could possibly be. He's just better. So
Not enough.
unless you're going to bring back Akeem Olajuwon from his prime, there's nobody that can reasonably guard him while also giving him work on the other end. The one guy would be Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid has never sniffed a conference finals before because his offensive game still has holes you can poke in it that really get put on full display in a playoff series because
Every team that Denver Nuggets went up against this playoff season, the person guarding Jokic did not do a good enough job of going at him aggressively. In this finals, Bam is you don't understand the frustration that I have with Bam. He gives you glimpses of what a kind of amazing player he can be with his athleticism and his fucking handles, and then he reverts back to these pull-up jumpers in the fucking paint. I want to fucking yell at him, bro. I want to grab him and shake him. He athletically has the advantage on Jokic. I mean, a lot of people have the advantage on Jokic athletically, but Bam, what he should have been doing, he should have been literally driving through the chest of Jokic almost every single possession, and he only did that in glimpses. Not every single possession, but he only did that in glimpses, man. People are relying on the jump shot way too much. Okay, that's this
they're
round.
relying on the jump shot too much. And one of the reasons why I give the Denver Nuggets credit for that is because the Denver Nuggets offense is so good that they make you take your legs out of your game, which is why you revert to pull up jump shots. And that's the shot that they want you to take. And they're good enough defensively. They're not great, but they are good enough defensively whenever they want to be. That's the shot that they will concede and force you to take. By the way,
100%.
Bam Adebayo takes the most amount of paint jump shots of any player in the league. He almost takes 4 a game. So that is his game. He doesn't have great touch around the rim
Unfortunately.
the same way that Jokic does. So he is a good player, not a great player, but
Yeah.
he's undersized.
Yeah, no, but
One of the
okay, yes,
things
he's
I think the real
undersized, but how?
conversation that needs to be had is not about Miami. We're done talking about Miami. We gave them their flowers. They
Hold on,
made
but
the NBA finals. I am
Bam,
done
hold on.
talking. I'm done talking
Micah,
about
hold on.
Bam.
No, hold on. You said that Micah, you said that Bam is undersized. Correct. But what Bam is able to do to match Jokic is athletically. And Bam didn't take advantage of that. That's Bam. In the previous series, Anthony Davis was guarding him. Anthony Davis, to me, didn't do a good enough job of fucking going at him offensively. Make him feel you. And the series prior to that, fucking Phoenix, who was the big guarding? Oh, DeAndre Ayton. Are you fucking kidding me? Like I'm not even gonna DeAndre Ayton doesn't deserve me to talk about him. So that's that. And in the first round was Rudy Gobert or was Cat. Nobody is going straight at Jokic's chest. What is everybody doing? Put him on his ass. Let me see how he reacts.
I'm so angry that you're making this take. Every team has done this. The guy is just too good defensively. They've all tried to do this.
Nah, he's
He is
he's
just good enough that he has told you, I'm going to make you play with a hand behind your back because I'm also going to give you work on the other end, that I'm going to take your legs away and you're not going to be physically fit enough to try and give me work the entire game. And there have been games this playoffs when the Nuggets have had to fight through adversity, when Jokic has been in foul trouble for the exact same thing that you are mentioning. I am kind of ticked off that you're trying to make this take because
what
it's
what is
just
it
straight
what
up
is it
wrong.
what is it
Teams have
about this
tried to
take
do
that
this. Jokic knows that that's the scouting report about him, and he's gotten much better enough that he's not going to allow you to do that unless you're actually some guy that can match him physically, which none of those guys can.
Anthony
Anthony
Davis can?
Davis is the best defender in the entire NBA, and Jokic made him his plaything.
That's
And
a
then on the
fact.
other end, Anthony Davis is not strong enough because Jokic is essentially an immovable object. People don't give him credit for how big, how smart, how intelligent he is defensively, which is I know that I have physical limitations, but I'm going to use my size to alter shots by putting my hands up. I have
One-on-one game
decent foot speed to be able to keep my feet in front of you,
and a
and I'm going to force you to
one-on-one
take tough angles.
in a one-on-one, take 5-on-5 out of the picture. One-on-one, AD versus Jokic. Who are you taking? And I'm going somewhere with this. AD versus Jokic. Who are you taking one-on-one?
I'm taking Jokic because guess what? AD tried to take him 1-on-1 and failed over and over and over again.
Okay, so my argument against that is Jokic as a one-on-one player. No, I wouldn't take him as a 5-on-5. Yeah, I'm taking him every
You
day.
know that Jokic is
But
the most
hold
prolific
on,
scorer in
hold
the
on,
entire league.
hold
He
on,
shoots
hold
70% on
on,
floaters. He shoots
hold on,
68% on hook shots. He makes the
Micah,
most shots in the restricted area of the
Micah,
entire league. He
Micah,
is the best offensive player, and
Micah,
defensively, he's above
Micah,
average, and that's all he needs to
Micah.
be in order to be number one.
Micah, hold on. What I'm saying again, let me get my point across. One on one, I'm not taking Jokic because Jokic's impact is greater on a team. Individually, yes, he has all the skills in the world, but on a team, you can see his impact a lot more. Now, I would take AD one on one. So now, going to the Lakers and Denver series, there was multiple times where AD was posting up Jokic, and that was basically a one-on-one possession. AD did not take advantage of that. And I can say that for every fucking player going up against Jokic. I'm not saying that he's a horrible defender. I'm not saying that he's soft, but I'm saying everybody they didn't do a good enough job of trying to go at him.
Really, bruh? You can't give Jokic credit for making those guys look like they pale in comparison to him.
They're
He had
giving
to
him too
work
much
his ass
respect.
off defensively to force those guys to say, you know what? I'm not taking on that challenge. I got to pass out of it and we got to run another play or swing it around the perimeter.
They gave him too much respect. They gave him way too much respect. And listen, I'm coming at it different because
This isn't a playoff series. Guys make adjustments all the time. You don't think that that's what their idea was, which is I've heard it
yeah, there's
last 4 years.
adjustments, but
We're
there's still
going to put him in a
opportunity when you
million
have a
pick and rolls.
chance to go
By the
at
way,
Jokic.
Jokic guards bigs amazingly. The one thing that he doesn't do well is guard in space against smaller guards that can drive right by him. He guards bigs amazingly. So everything that you finally saw him do, he's done fantastic for the last 3 seasons or so. The one team in the Western Conference and maybe the entire league that would have put serious pressure on this Denver Nuggets team would have been the Golden State Warriors because they can light it up from the outside at a good enough clip and they can get 1-on-5
No, not
switches
this
with Curry on
season. The
Jokic.
Warriors would have got murked. Warriors
The
would have got
Warriors would have
murked.
been too small and the Nuggets would have scored every time they wanted, But the Nuggets also would have had a ton of problems in the defensive end
The Warriors would have
because
smoked
Jokic would be in drop
Nuggets would have
coverage
smoked
and
the Nuggets would
Draymond
have
would
smoked
lay into
Warriors.
anybody guarding Gary.
The Nuggets would have smoked the Warriors because the Warriors were not a fucking team. The Jordan Poole is a fucking joke of a player. Fucking Gary Payton didn't show up this whole postseason. Steph Curry was the only player that actually showed up. Klay Thompson forgot how to play. Draymond Green is too small. The Nuggets would have fucking murked the Warriors. And
Okay,
as far
so
as
answer me this.
hold on.
Is
As
is
far as
Milwaukee the
adjustments,
one team that would have been able to give Denver a lot of problems? Because I think Boston would have also
as
been kind of an
as
interesting
far
challenge.
as far as adjustments, I understand what you're saying. There are adjustments that coaches make which take away the opportunity to play one-on-one. When someone's posted up against Jokic, I understand that. But even with the adjustments, there's still moments where an isolation ends up. And that's what I'm saying right there. In those moments, that's the opportunity to go straight at his chest. And that's how you get him into foul trouble with teams like what the fuck? Like this game, Kyle Lowry he got not Kyle Lowry specifically, but Jokic got 2 fouls in the first half and he had to sit for a while. Uh you try to get the best player on the team in foul trouble, that way he can't affect the game. Did you see the Lakers trying to do that? Did you see the Lakers make it a point to go at Jokic and get him in foul trouble? I didn't see it personally. I didn't
Yeah, I
see it.
did. I saw LeBron repeatedly attack the rim.
All right.
I saw AD try it and he failed. LeBron was able to do it consistently the same way that he has his entire career. The
I
only
didn't see it,
kinds of
man.
teams that have been able to slow down LeBron James teams have been teams that are way better offensively, which is the Denver Nuggets, or a team that has a ton of rim protection. So the Nuggets don't have a ton of rim protection, but what Jokic does really well is he guards other bigs
Yeah,
that
he's a
think
good
the
defender.
same way that you do. He guards other bigs really well who want to just put him on the block and try to back him down because he's bigger than almost anybody.
Yeah, he's a good defender. He gets a bad rap for his defense, but it's actually not that bad. What was your question? You
And
asked me
then
a question about the Bucks.
oh yes, yeah, I'm saying instead of the Heat, were you saying that potentially the Bucks would have been the most difficult matchup because it would be Brook Lopez on Jokic, and then it would be Giannis in the roamer role, which is where he's the best defender outside
Uh,
of on ball in the entire league.
Honestly, no, because everybody this whole season, when obviously when Giannis was healthy, was saying how the Bucks were the best team, but then when the Bucks went down, the supporting players forgot how to play. Like if you're one of the elite teams, your supporting cast could be competitive. So just because you lost Giannis doesn't mean that you can't beat this Miami Heat. After they lost Giannis, that supporting cast should have carried the team to like more than fucking one win. So if they go up against Denver, like no, I don't think the Bucks would have been a better matchup. I think Denver would have smoked them as well. Boston,
Fair enough.
Boston's mentally not tough, bro. No, Denver would have smoked Boston as well.
You're probably right. And that's one of the reasons why I am not going to delegitimize what Denver did at all. I'm
I'm
going to
not
say they were an
legitimate
all-time dominant team, and I'm not going to
legitimizing
come
it.
into next season saying I just want teams to go at Jokic's chest. The one way to beat the Nuggets is to essentially craft your roster like Phoenix, only get better defensively, which Phoenix needs to retool their roster some, because Denver is going to
They need to
force
retool
teams to
their
take a
roster a
ton.
lot.
Well, yeah, definitely. But I'm saying Denver is going to force teams to take tough pull up mid range twos and hit them at a high enough clip that they're able to. Because Denver's offense is almost 1.2 points per possession every time Jokic is on the floor. And if you're just playing the math game, they bend the math in their favor as long as the other team is not making 50% of their threes or they're making an absurd percentage of tough pull up twos because they guard the rim using their size with Jokic doing everything that he can, then Gordon coming over and help, and Porter's also a long body. There, by the way, the Nuggets, they are going to lose Bruce Brown this offseason. They're going to get another ball handler. They also might add another athletic defensive big to come off the bench, which would be another element that they could add to this team that would only make them stronger. And they might come back next season and be a top 10 defense the way that they have never been during the Michael Malone, Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray era. So they are set up for long-term success, but I want to go ahead and transition now because we are bordering on a very long podcast at this point. We still have not gotten to the Nikola Jokic all-time discussion rankings because right now, after tonight, he has moved into 7th all-time in my all-time center rankings behind Kareem, Bill Russell, Wilt,
Oh God.
Shaq, Hakeem, and Moses Malone are the
Oh
6 guys
God.
that are still. What?
Man, Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain, like literally the only come on, man. Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain, the only competition
You're
was
telling me that you're just going to erase the greatest winner in NBA history and then the
they
guy
were
who posts stat lines
they
that have never ever been heard of
if
before?
if Bill Russell was not playing against Will Chamberlain, he was playing against teachers who had a fucking second job. He was playing against NBA players that were fucking plumbers.
He's the greatest
I'm not
leader
taking
in
away
team sports history.
I'm
He's the
not
greatest
taking away
defender
his
in
rings.
NBA history. And
I'm
by the
not
way, people don't give him enough credit for as good of a playmaker as he was.
I'm not
So
taking away his
yes,
rings.
he's the second greatest center ever. Kareem 1, Russell 2. And by the way, Russell was also a player coach at times during his career. And he still has in 69, I believe, his team came back from down 0-2 against the Lakers. That's still the only time that the Los Angeles Lakers have been up 2-0 in a series and have lost. Their entire time that the Los Angeles Lakers have been the LA
Bro,
Lakers.
there was 8 teams in the league at that time. Like, come on, man. Bill Russell and
I'm
Will
not going to
Chamberlain.
no, I'm
I'm
sorry.
not
I have had
listen,
this
I'm
discussion
not
with too many people.
delegitimate. I'm not going to take away his rings and his championships, but for me personally, the top 10 centers and the top 10 players of all time, it begins in 1980 and it moves forward. To me
Oh,
personally.
okay. So then Kareem is not in it because
No,
Kareem,
Kareem's in it. Kareem's in it.
then why does it start at 1980?
Kareem's prime was mostly in the 80s.
Kareem's best season was 72 in his second year. His best regular season was in 76. He won 5 MVPs during the 70s. He won an NBA Finals. He was the best player in the league by the end of year 2 in 72. He averaged 35 a game in 73. So there's no way that you can say that Kareem is that good in your eyes if you're just going to start at 1980 because that just takes
Well,
away when Kareem dominated the entire league and Bill Walton and Moses Malone for part of his career and Dr. J. Like, does Dr. J count in your rankings?
no, 100%. Okay, so I should have rephrased it. So you have the actual dates and his fucking best season, which I appreciate. So I'm pretty much counting from when Kareem came into the league, when Kareem came into the NBA moving forward.
Okay, so Jerry West doesn't count. Oscar Robertson doesn't count. Bob Pettit doesn't count. George Mikan doesn't count.
it's not that they don't count, but
Elgin Baylor
me
doesn't count. Like,
personally, it's not that they don't count. It's just me personally, I don't include them in the top 10 because it was such a different time, Micah. Come on, man. You're gonna tell me that I'm
okay,
lying
so
about the NBA players?
are my
Hold on.
grandkids going to say that Nikola
Wait.
Jokic, Giannis, LeBron James, those guys don't count?
Stop. Stop. Just me personally. And answer this question. The NBA players during that time, did they have during the Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain time, did they have a second job? Yes or no?
Yeah, some of them did.
Most of them did. Okay.
Yeah,
So
most of
you so you're really telling me that a fucking NBA player with a second job is gonna devote his whole time into fucking bettering his craft? They're not
Okay,
able to. They gotta make
so
money.
I've answered your question, which means that you have to be able to answer mine. Are
True.
my grandkids going to say that the players that I grew up watching don't count?
No, because your grandkids are going to be able to look back at our time and realize that the talent pool is so much more better than when Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain were playing. The talent pool of Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain, there was like 4 good players. Get the fuck out of here. Four players that were like, oh fuck, what's that word? They were 4 players that were like, they had name recognition. Like, what the fuck? In our era, you got fucking Dwayne Wade, you got Kobe, you
So
got
you
LeBron, you got
said
Tim
that you're
Duncan. Like,
not
there's so many fucking
delegitimizing
people.
it, but that's exactly what you're doing.
I'm
You're
not. This
wiping
is me
out history. This
personally.
is
It's just
revisionist history. What?
nah. It's Micah. It's just me personally, man. That's my list.
All right.
That's me
Well,
personally.
okay.
Much respect.
Me personally, I am not going to act as if history did not happen.
I feel you. This whole like top 10 as far as like individual players, it's kind of hard to do it because Jokic just won his first championship. But I do want to say though that Jokic is the best European player of all time. And I
Better than
don't.
Dirk,
I
better
mean,
than Giannis.
he has 2 MVPs and he has a Finals MVP and he has a championship. And look at the stats that he's putting up.
Okay, so he's better than Giannis. And by the way,
European, yes. As far as the best player, I still give the nod to Giannis because of Giannis. Again, when I look at who's the best player, I incorporate everything. What have you done so far? Your skills, your talent, and when I say your skills, and it goes offensively, but it also goes defensively. Jokic is a good defensive player. He doesn't get enough credit for it, but Giannis has a bigger impact on the defensive end. Jokic's offensive game is way better than Giannis's. So it's fucking hard, man. It's really hard between Jokic and Giannis, honestly, because they both do things that like it cancels each other out. I'm not
okay,
sure.
let me tell you my top 30 rankings because I was going over this earlier.
30?
I
Jesus
have I
Christ.
have a top 100 rankings because I am somebody who is just an NBA nerd and I have memorized a bunch of stats just because I think it's fun to do. So the centers that I have ahead of him: Kareem, Russell, Wilt, Shaq, Hakeem, and Moses. Moses, I will not stand for anybody who doesn't bring him up because he's the greatest offensive rebounder of all time. He has some
He's
of the
underrated.
he has some of the strongest touch around the rim that you'll ever see. He's the best player on the best team of the 1980s. He's a guy who took a team with Calvin Murphy as the second best player to the finals in 81. He won 3 MVPs in a 4-year stretch, and he averaged 26 and 15 for 6 years, all of which in the NBA, not the ABA. So then the power forwards that currently rank ahead of Jokic on my all-time list. And again, this is something that Jokic is going to continue to climb up because he only has at this point a 3-year run. It's been a
Yeah,
dominant 3-year run,
which is fucking
but
scary as shit.
yeah, it is. But
Jokic.
you also have to give credit to the guys that had an 8 to 10 year run, even if they didn't play at quite this high of a level. Duncan and Giannis. That's it. He climbed ahead of Dirk, ahead of Karl Malone, ahead of Garnett and Bob Pettit.
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
then the
That's
small
fair.
forwards that still rank ahead of him are LeBron, Bird, Durant, and Julius Irving. He passed Elgin Baylor, Kawhi, Scottie Pippen, and John Havlicek.
You still got Dr. J ahead of Jokic?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Dr. J was a 16-time All-Star. He's a 4-time ABA MVP. He is the only player in NBA and ABA history to have played at least 16 seasons and have made the All-Star team every single year that you've played. He's also in the 25,000 point club. He's also a guy that, while he's not an NBA Finals MVP, he repeatedly took teams that were way undermanned to heights that they should not have been in terms of the conference finals over and over and over again. And Nikola Jokic, again, has had a 3-year run and it's been dominant, but he still has a ways to go in order to build out an entire career that holds itself up against some of the all-time legends. He's headed toward the Pantheon,
That's a
but
fact. Hold on. You said four-time NBA MVP Julius Irving.
four-time
And
ABA and NBA. Okay, Rick Barry also dominated in the ABA, and Rick Barry is the NBA's all-time leader in finals points per game, minimum
well,
of 10 games played.
well,
So
Dr. J, I get that All-Star selections, you need to include that, but at the same time, like back then, All-Star selections meant something. Nowadays, it's kind of a popularity contest. So like whenever you give All-Star stats, like it depends on which player. Like the Dr. J, yeah, I guess it's important because like I just said, in that
it's very
time,
important when you have 16 of them.
yeah, and again, especially in that time, they took it more serious. So okay, cool. But Dr. J, man, with that one ring, it's just interesting. His career is so interesting. But anyway, my bad.
Yeah,
Keep
it
going.
is. Okay, so between centers, power forwards, which is just Duncan and Giannis, and then the 4 small forwards, we are at 12 names already. Then for shooting guards, Jordan, Kobe, and Jerry West are the 3 ahead of him. He passed Wade and he passed Harden and he passed AI. Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really 3 names. It's Jordan, Kobe, and Jerry West are
Mm.
the 3 that are still ahead of him. We are at 15 total, and then 3 point guards, and that's it. And that's Magic, Curry, and Oscar Robertson. So
Giannis is still, I don't know where to put Giannis yet because he's still in the prime of his career and it looks like he's going to be around for a while. Jokic as well. So it's really hard for me. But the reason why I say European The only other European that I thought was going head to head with Jokic as far as for that crown was Dirk. But when you look at Dirk's career, he has one title. He blew that fucking 2007 or 2006 playoff when he lost to the eight-seeded Warriors.
Yeah, and he also blew the 2006
Six
finals.
finals.
The Mavs were up 2-0 and they were up double digits in game 3. If they go up 3-0, they beat the Heat, and then likely we're not talking about Wade as an all-time great. We're talking about Wade as a near all-time great at that point.
Exactly. So he has one NBA MVP. He has two flameouts. He has one championship. Now, granted, that one championship is going against the fucking first year of the Heatles, which is crazy, but it still only counts as one. Jokic has two MVPs. He has a Finals MVP, and he has a fucking championship. Like I just think he surpassed Dirk. I just think he surpassed
I have him
Dirk.
ahead of Dirk. Yeah, I said the only two power forwards that I still have ahead of him are Duncan and Giannis.
So is Jokic the best European player of all time for you? I'm not ready to go player of all time. I'm not ready to do that list, but European player because there's only a finite amount of players. That's why I
Mm,
can. That's why I can confidently say that.
I don't want to say European. If we're just going to talk about players from a certain area, let's talk about best international players ever, which Hakeem is one, Giannis is two, and Jokic is three.
I think Jokic is going to be the. I think he is, and I think he's going to. But I think he is right now, and I think by the time of his end of his career, it's going to be fucking. It's not going to be a question. As far as European players that came to the NBA, he's the best player
Do you
ever.
think that he has the ability to crack the top 10 all time?
Yeah,
That's awesome because I think among
crazy.
the top 10 players of all time, he would be the guy that didn't hit his actual peak until very late because I'm looking at the list. All of those other guys were pretty much great right away and didn't take 3, 4, even 5 years in order to start making all NBA teams. Like Duncan was the first team all NBA his first season. Bird made first team all NBA 3 of his first 4 years. Magic was a finals MVP his first year. LeBron was an MVP finalist and a first time All NBA guy's third season when he was 20 years old. Jordan made first team All NBA in his third season. Kareem was the best player in the world after 2 seasons. Russell was a finals MVP, or excuse me, a finals winner. There were no finals MVPs then, but he now has the Bill Russell finals MVP trophy named after him and was putting on insane defensive performances from day one. Then you get to Duncan, who was a finals MVP after his year 2, and then was the best player in the world by his year 6. Then you get to the tough ones. Like Kobe was not the Kobe that we all know for the first Lakers title, but then by the
Right.
second Lakers title was unreal and averaged 28 a game over those two finals runs in the second and third years of the three-peat. And then from
Dude,
there, he was him and Duncan, and then him and LeBron in terms of
dude, it's
the
just
argument for best.
Jokic, yo, it's scary, bro, because Jokic, like, you can tell that, like, again, barring injury, but like the way he plays, I feel like it's able to last. Like he doesn't depend on his athletic ability.
Yeah.
He depends on his smarts and he depends on his skills. His skills is very fundamentally sound. He knows when to put the defense on his heels. He knows when to take a jump shot. He knows when to get in the post. He knows when to pick and roll. And he's fucking smart as shit. He's one of the smartest players I've ever seen. Him and LeBron have been two of the smartest players I've seen in my lifetime. But again, like the whole top 10 player stuff, that's really I can't do that right now. That's really hard. But that's why I went European and European players to come in the NBA. Like I think it's easily Jokic, man. Like besides Dirk, there really isn't who else comes to mind? Tony
Oh,
Tony
there's no other. I mean,
Tony
Parker
Parker,
and Pau
yeah.
Gasol are really the only the other guys.
Yeah, but Powell, he has championships, but he has no MVPs, finals or regular season.
Yeah.
Tony has a lot of championships and he has one finals MVP, but again, he was never the main guy on the team. He was always number two to Tim Duncan. So that's
Yep.
it. So anyway, man, listen, this
Yeah,
pod
and
go ahead, go ahead,
Jokic
go ahead.
is also by far the best second round pick of all time. The
Yeah,
only other
yeah.
guys that come close are Manu, Draymond Green, and Jeff Hornacek.
Yeah, but all those guys are secondary players.
Yep.
Jokic is the main player on this team, so I think it's easily hands down Jokic the best second round player. Listen, man, there's a lot to chew on. This is not going to be the last time that we hear or see of you. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff this all season. A lot of stuff is going to be happening. Chris Paul, there's rumors that the Suns are going to waive him. Could the Lakers pick him up? The whole Kyrie situation. A lot of shit, a lot of shit. So we're definitely going to hear and see of you again. But again, just to put a cap on tonight, Denver Nuggets, they won the NBA Finals in 5 games against Miami. Much respect to Miami for putting up a good fight. And so shout out my guys Reed and Trent. They're from Miami. I'm sorry that you guys weren't able to win, but you guys put up a good fight. Micah, before we sign off, again, if you want to let the people know how to reach you, if you got anything going on before we sign off, let it go.
Absolutely. First off, I want to say it was my pleasure to join you as always. You can find my stuff at the NBA Interact on Instagram. I also work as a video production guy for the Action Network. If anybody's into sports betting, I will also be continuing my NBA writing career with Celtics CLNS. So the
Oh,
Celtics
nice.
obviously face a tumultuous offseason with many questions and not as many answers besides they have Jason Tatum, which is obviously a great thing and a pillar to build around, but the rest of the roster, they might be in for a major retool. So you can certainly find my stuff there. And no better way to end it, I guess, than coronating the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. It's been a long time coming for them, but they are the NBA champions for the first time in their franchise history.
Facts. And I forgot to throw in that Jaylen Brown decision that the Boston Celtics have to make. That's something else that's going to be going on in the offseason. So there's a lot of stuff, man. So, Michael, I want to say thank you again for joining me on this episode. I appreciate you. And we'll see you soon, all right?
Absolutely. Thank you as always.
Peace.